Do you feel like your light is fading? As if the world keeps turning, but you've stopped in time, trapped in a place of pain that no one sees? Have you ever found yourself crying in silence, wondering if God still remembers your name? Sometimes pain has no explanation. It's an emptiness in the chest that can't be filled, a longing for something we can't even define. And in those moments, it's common to think, has God forgotten me? Has he abandoned me? If you've ever felt this message is for you. Today, I want to tell you a story. A real, simple but powerful story. The story of a woman named Elisângela. At 53, she believed her life had come to an end, that nothing made sense anymore, that God had gone silent. But what she didn't know was that this pain hid a purpose. And perhaps, like her, you're living the darkest moment of your life, without realizing that it's precisely there that God is preparing a new beginning. So please, stay with me until the end of this story, because it might be that through it, God speaks to you. It might be that this story is the hug your heart has been waiting for. And if this message touches your heart, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who also needs hope. Together, let's spread faith, comfort, and new beginnings. Chapter 1, When Everything Seems to Fall Apart. Elisângela was always seen as a strong woman, the kind that life hits but doesn't break. She raised 2 children alone, with courage and calloused hands. She had been sewing since she was 20, hemming, mending clothes, embroidering dish towels. It was her way of supporting the household, but also of maintaining dignity. For over 30 years, she was the foundation of a family that had only her. But at 53, everything collapsed, suddenly, without warning. Her eldest son simply disappeared, left to handle something and never returned. The younger one drowned himself in alcohol as if trying to drown the pains of a lifetime. And then, as if that weren't enough, the small workshop where she worked closed down. No explanations, no prior notice. 30 years of dedication vanished as if they were dust in the wind. It was during this time that Elisângela began sleeping on the living room couch. Not because she didn't have a bed, but because she no longer had the strength to enter the bedroom, where so many memories of what was and what ceased to be consumed her. She cried in silence. At night, she lay in the dark and asked, "Lord, where are you?" There was no more sewing machine noise, no children's laughter, no hope. Loneliness began to scream inside her, a scream that no one heard, a silence that hurt more than any harsh word. But what Elisângela didn't know was that rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the soil where God would begin to plant something new. Chapter 2, The Silence That Screams Inside. Loneliness is a kind of pain that doesn't show up in photos. It doesn't leave bruises, but it corrodes from within little by little. Elisângela would wake up and see no purpose. She drank coffee in silence. Sometimes she didn't even taste it. The days dragged on and the prayers became shorter and shorter. Repeated words, sometimes just whispers. Other times, just a look to the sky with tear-filled eyes. She began to ask herself, if I disappeared, would anyone miss me? That question, simple and devastating, echoed in her mind like thunder in a dry sky. The phone didn't ring. No one knocked on the door. The few friends from the past had moved on with their lives, and she seemed to have been forgotten even by time. The most painful part was the feeling that God was also silent, as if he had distanced himself, as if he no longer heard her. But what she still didn't understand is that God's silence is not absence, it's preparation. It's in the desert that God most shapes his children. It's when everything falls silent that he prepares the next step. And sometimes the sky remains silent, not because God doesn't care, but because he's designing something much greater than we can imagine. Elisângela's heart was tired, but deep down a small spark, almost imperceptible, still resisted. Hope, even weak, hadn't died yet. And it's precisely there, when we think nothing else can happen, that God begins to act. Chapter 3. The day Elisângela thought of giving up. That day dawned grey. The overcast sky seemed to reflect what Elisângela felt inside, a weight in her chest, an absence of color, of direction. of life. She didn't get out of bed, stayed there, curled up with the blanket up to her chin, trying to hide from the world and her own pain. Tears flowed effortlessly, as if her eyes had gotten used to crying on their own. And then, in the midst of that thick silence, she took a sheet of paper and wrote a prayer. But it wasn't a beautiful prayer. There were no verses, no sweet words. It was a vent, a plea. With a trembling hand she wrote, "God, if you still see me, give me a sign. Show me that you're still with me, because I can't take it anymore. Speak to me before I give up for good." She folded the paper, left it beside the bed, cried until she fell asleep. That night, for the first time in a long time, her sleep was deep. Not because the pain had passed, but because something was about to change. Because when a tired soul surrenders everything into God's hands, even fatigue becomes a prayer, and heaven listens. Chapter 4. A voice in the middle of the night. It was early morning. The clock read 3:12 a.m. Elisângela woke up suddenly, not understanding why. The house was in complete silence. No car noises on the street, no wind. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. She got up slowly, still with a heavy heart, went to the kitchen, boiled water, and made some tea, sat at the table, and stared at the steam rising from the cup, as if that steam were the fragile thread connecting her to heaven. It was at that moment, in the midst of profound silence, that a soft, internal, almost whispered voice touched her heart with force. "I never left you." Elisângela Frazi. It wasn't a common thought. It wasn't something from her tired mind. It was something different, alive. At that moment, a verse she hadn't read in years came to her memory, as if someone had whispered it. "Though a mother may forget the child she nurses, I will never forget you." Isaiah 49:15. She brought her hands to her face and began to cry. But this time, it wasn't a cry of pain. It was a cry of relief, of someone who finally felt seen, heard, loved. That night, alone in the kitchen, with no lights on, no one around, God embraced her. And it was there that everything began to change. Chapter 5. The pain that revealed a hidden purpose. The next day, something inside Elisângela was different. There was still pain, yes. The problems hadn't disappeared. But something in her gaze had changed. There was light. A small light like the flame of a candle, but it was enough to rekindle faith. She got up, walked to an old cabinet, and took out her old sewing machine. It was dusty, smelling of time and nostalgia. As she touched it, she felt as if she were reconnecting with a friend she had left behind. Then she had an idea. She took fabric scraps, needle, thread, and began to embroider. But this time it wasn't flowers or names. It was Bible verses. Small messages of faith, hope, and healing. In each stitch, a prayer. In each cloth, a surrender. She started posting the embroideries on social media without much expectation, just sharing what she was stitching into her soul. A new beginning. And then something surprising happened. People began to comment, request orders, share their stories. People she had never seen said, "This healed me today. This word was for me. Thank you for reminding me that God still cares." What seemed like just a simple activity turned into a silent ministry. Elisângela wasn't just selling embroidered cloths. She was delivering comfort. Each order was wrapped with prayer, each customer an opportunity to sow faith. And that's when she understood. That pain wasn't the end. It was the fertile soil where God planted a new purpose. What she thought was loss was in fact divine redirection to something greater. Elisângela understood that her pain wasn't a punishment. It was a path, a process, a divine plan that she couldn't see at first, but that little by little, God was revealing with love and purpose. She discovered that even when everything seems to fall apart, God is holding the invisible threads of our story. That God's silence isn't absence, it's preparation. And maybe you're living a time of hidden tears, of gray days. Maybe you think no one sees you, that no one cares, that God has forgotten you. But the truth is, God never forgets his children. Never. He sees you. He knows your struggles that no one else knows. And he's writing your story with care, with patience, with eternal love. Don't give up now. Don't stop at the chapter of pain, because chapters of healing and victory are being prepared. If you've come this far, it wasn't by chance. This story touched you because the Holy Spirit wanted to remind you your life still has meaning. Your journey still has a destination, and God is still in control. So please, if this message spoke to you, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who also needs to remember that there's still hope. You're not alone. Never were. This story is also about you.